in the shadowed war of codes and ciphers, where battles were fought not with bullets but with intellect. Victory often hinged on a single imperceptible flaw, a misplaced letter, a repeated pattern, a human error in a machine's perfect logic. This is the story of one such error, isolated not by a senior cryptanalyst but by a meticulous clerk. A story that asks, what happens when the fate of nations rests on a single mistake? When a clerk isolated a single error, the mistake that revealed everything. Our scene is not a battlefield, but a sprawling, makeshift intelligence headquarters. The British Code and Cipher School at Bletchley Park, England, in the bleak winter of 1941. The men and women working here, mathematicians, linguists, and clerks, are engaged in a desperate struggle against the most sophisticated cipher system in the world, the German Enigma machine. This electromechanical device used by the Wehrmacht, Luftwaffe, and critically, the Kriegsmarine, the German Navy, could generate millions of possible letter substitutions every day. To the Allies, the U-boat war in the Atlantic was a black void. Convoys vital to Britain's survival were being slaughtered. The reason? The U-boats communicated with impunity using an Enigma variant with an extra rotor, making their signals, codenamed Shark by the Allies, virtually unbreakable. The task of cracking Shark fell to Bletchley's Hut 8, led by the brilliant Alan Turing. But Turing's theoretical breakthroughs needed raw material to work with, repetitions, patterns, a crib or suspected piece of plain text within the encrypted gibberish. Without it, the Enigma's settings for the day remained an insurmountable mystery, and in late 1941, the Shark Enigma was a locked steel door. Pause. The Battle of the Atlantic was being lost. Enter our unlikely protagonist, not a codebreaker, but a painstakingly careful clerk, one of many tasked with the monotonous, yet vital work of cataloging and cross-referencing intercepted German signals. Day after day, they would sort through reams of teleprinter tape, looking for anything out of the ordinary, a faint signal in the noise. The clerk in our story, whose name is lost to time but whose contribution is etched in history, was examining a routine encrypted Kriegsmarine weather report. These reports were sent daily from U-boats and weather ships, containing coded data on wind speed, barometric pressure, and position. They were short, formulaic, and considered by some to be low priority. But this clerk knew their immense potential. Weather reports often contained predictable language, making them ideal candidates for cribs. On this day, the clerk noticed something. A particular string of encrypted letters, just 4 or 5 groups long, appeared in the message. It was not the content that was unusual, but its context. Through meticulous comparison with earlier, partially broken signals and known German weather reporting procedures, a suspicion hardened into certainty. This encrypted sequence did not match the standard format. It was an anomaly. By 1600 hours, the clerk had isolated it, a single glaring error. A German radio operator, likely fatigued or under pressure, had made a critical mistake. He had, in effect, sent the same piece of information twice, but in 2 slightly different ways. One was in the standard complex Enigma cipher. The other was not. It was a simpler procedural code. The operator had, for a split second, broken his own protocol. Pause. He had created a depth, 2 different encryptions of similar material. A cryptanalyst's golden ticket. The clerk immediately flagged the intercept. This wasn't just a curiosity. It was a potential key. The mistake meant that a piece of known, or at least guessable, plain text, the standard weather observation, was now sitting in the encrypted signal, waiting to be discovered. It was a tiny crack in the Enigma's armor. But at Bletchley Park, tiny cracks were how you brought down giants. Yet even with this error identified, the situation remained desperate. The clock was ticking. The Enigma settings changed at midnight, rendering today's intercepts useless. The team in Hut 8, including Turing and his colleague Gordon Welchman, now had a fragment, a clue, but the monumental task of applying it remained. The bomb machines clattering, room-sized electromechanical computers, designed by Turing, needed a precise crib to test millions of possible rotor settings. A vague hunch wasn't enough. The crib had to be exact. If their guess about the plain text was off by even a single letter, the bomb runs would yield nothing, wasting precious hours. The weight of the Atlantic convoy routes? of the thousands of sailors and millions of tons of cargo now rested on the interpretation of one clerk's finding and the code breaker's ability to exploit it. The U-boats, invisible and lethal, continued to stalk the sea lanes. The mistake had been found, but the door was not yet open. This was the moment where deep knowledge met sheer intellectual daring. The clerk's isolated error provided the entry point. Turing and his team, understanding German weather reporting jargon inside and out, constructed a likely plaintext for the message. Phrases like Wetter für die Nacht, weather for the night, or Windstärke, wind force, were fitted against the encrypted string. Using the clerk's discovery of the dual encryption error, they could perform a complex logical assault on the cipher. The mistake essentially gave them a known relationship between two pieces of text. They could now ask the bomb a specific, constrained question. What rotor settings would transform our guessed plaintext into this ciphertext, given the anomaly we have observed? The bombs were activated. Wheels spun, electrical contacts clicked and hummed. For hours, the machines ground through possibilities, a symphony of desperation and hope. Then a stop. A technician noted a potential rotor setting. The result was rushed to a checking station. There, another clerk, perhaps the same one, tested the setting on a replica Enigma machine. They typed in the intercepted ciphertext. The wheels turned, and out in clear, legible German came a perfect, sensible weather report. They had done it. The Shark Enigma's settings for the day were broken. The opaque curtain shielding the U-boat. Fleet's communications had been torn aside. What happened next was not a single victory, but a cascading breakthrough. The broken traffic for that day provided more cribs for the next, creating a chain reaction of intelligence. The immediate impact was seismic. For the first time, the Admiralty's submarine tracking room could read German, U-boat signals almost as quickly as their commanders. They saw patrol lines forming, learned of rendezvous points, and understood operational orders. Convoys were rerouted around wolf packs. The hunter became the hunted. While no single event can be credited with winning the Battle of the Atlantic, the breaking of the Shark Enigma in December, one sparked by that one clerk's vigilance, marked the definitive turning point. It allowed the Allies to counter the U-boat threat strategically, saving countless ships and lives. The flow of American men and materiel to Britain, and later for the D-Day invasion, was secured. The clerk, like so many at Bletchley Park, received no public medal, no official recognition. Their work remained shrouded in secrecy for decades. But their legacy is measured in more than awards. It is measured in the convoys that reached port, in the ships that didn't sink, and in the ultimate Allied victory that depended so completely on winning the secret war. They proved that heroism could wear the guise of quiet, unwavering diligence.